Hello, good morning and welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And joining us this morning is Bandula Jayasekara, the journalist and former diplomat. Morning, Bandula.
Morning, Faraz. I thought you'll wear a green shirt in honor of your friend Vijayadasa Rajapaksa.
Indeed, I considered it, only for a nanosecond. And also joining us is Dr. Pakisoti Saravanamuthu.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're very sorry that we had to turf you out of bed so early.
Yes, and this is a labor of love.
Indeed, indeed. And how much of a labor of love is the resignation of Sri Lanka's Minister in charge of law and order and the police, Tilak Marapana?
Well, I mean, given that ministers in Sri Lanka don't resign that frequently, and I think the last one was Mr. Jayasuriya.
Gamini Jayasuriya
At the time of the Indus-Sri Lanka Accord. That was way back in 87. You know, he has done the honorable thing. I mean, my organization released a statement calling for his resignation as well. I think the statement, the speech made in Parliament, flew in the face of the whole talk about governance, didn't understand conflict of interest. He seemed to be critical of an organization, an agency of the state which comes under his purview, the police. So I don't think there was any option but for him to go, because the public perception at the present moment of governance and government, particularly with regard to anti-corruption, is not good. There is this feeling that there is a lot of foot dragging, that there is no action being taken, that perhaps deals may well be made and all of that, and that is terribly corrosive.
It is, isn't it? I heard a politician or former politician say on TV yesterday that there is no Yapalini. He said that's it, that's it, don't talk about it because it doesn't exist anymore.
I certainly won't go that far at all, but what I would say is this, is that incidents like this, where you have revelations with regard to avant-garde and the accusations as far as 3 ministers are concerned, and perhaps even more, certainly suggests that it is under threat, and that if no immediate remedial action is taken, public cynicism with regard to politics and government will increase.
Look at the replacement, look at the papers. They say, you know, I mean, our viewer says, okay, Mr. Marapana was moved out to bring Sagala. They say, okay, so then it's fine, right? I mean, but then this position is going to Sagala. I mean, most of the newspapers are getting. How do you see things like that?
I will sort of reserve my judgment with regard to Mr. Ratnayaka's ministerial competence and abilities after giving him a chance to, you know, demonstrate them in office.
Well, after all, in the United States had a peanut farmer end up as the president of the United
precisely.
States.
And film stars.
There are inspired risks, if that's what you want to call them.
I like that, inspired risks.
Yes,
but do you think that more heads will roll after this on Avan?
Well, I think that will entirely depend on public pressure, and indeed as far as the opposition is concerned, as to whether they would really push for further resignations and push this issue to the hilt. And also, let's remember one thing, is that there is a public perception, the optics are bad at the moment, but whatever action is taken needs to be taken on hard facts. We can't sort of, you know, hang someone on the basis of public opinion, which may be imagined as opposed to based on hard facts, and that's not fair either.
I had a ride in a three-wheel a couple of days ago, and
that's news for us.
Yes, once in a way one must travel in these things to check the state of the road.
And to the three-wheeler too.
Could you believe it?
Poor three-wheel, don't know what it did to its suspension, but what the driver said was very interesting. I asked him what the state of play was in the country. I said, Rate Tatwe Mukadde. And he turned round and he looked at me. I said, keep your eye on the road. And he said, no, well, the reason that I was looking at your face is I wanted you to see that I wasn't wearing glasses. And I said, okay. And so I think he implied that he had got 20/20 vision. So I said, okay. He said, well, sir, you know, I'm driving you on this road, I'm taking you safely, but I can't see any Yapal in it. And then he proceeded to tell me that prices have gone up so much, and that the government are sort of styling it out by maintaining the fuel price. And he said that's just one thing. and there's more to life apparently than the price of fuel. And he proceeded to tell me how very expensive it is. Have you noticed that it's expensive?
Well, yes, and I've certainly been told so by any number of people that the cost of living has risen considerably. Well, I mean, these are all factors that the government, there's a budget coming up, we've had a midterm economic strategic review or whatever, statement of economic policy. These are things that they're going to have to seriously address. And in the first couple of months of next year, if these things are not sufficiently addressed, and if there isn't a feel-good factor injected into the public, then I think the government is going to face serious political challenges.
There's also a sort of profound belief that this government, led by Mr. Wickremesinghe, will simply not do anything about these corruption allegations against the members of the former First Family and so on. And it certainly appears to us too that way. Are you a bit frustrated? Is your organization a bit frustrated that these matters don't appear to be progressing?
Well, two things, Faraz. One, of course, is this. Yes, Mr. Wickremesinghe is the Prime Minister, but there's also a President.
Yes.
And a President who still retains some executive powers. And the President who is also the head of a committee or commission or whatever it is that's looking into these serious allegations of fraud. Second thing, yes, there is concern about things taking time, and perhaps they have to take time because you have to go through due process. So key in this respect is the government's ability and willingness to communicate to the public as to why there is a delay. What we're getting are the allegations and then nothing happening thereafter, or someone being arrested, given coming out on bail, or ending up in the hospital or something like that. So they need to have a continuing conversation. Communication is absolutely essential. From what I understand, in terms of the cases, the first one that will really come to trial is in February, right? The case with Ladit Veeratunga, the former secretary to the president.
And Anusha Palpita.
Anusha Palpita. And that's February.
But so far it looks like it's a media spectacle. These are people come and go, you have film stars, which is, unnecessary.
Absolutely. The whole sense of, where are the low-hanging fruit? This government, this dispensation has been in office since January of this year, and now we're talking November. 11 months or whatever. And nothing really substantive has happened on the anti-corruption front, and that is key. So they have to do something.
But
they shouldn't rush to judgment.
This is like an old boys club, all these politicians get together, they know each other well, they're friends. They fight, we see them fighting, but they're all good friends.
Well, I suppose at the end of the day, the only thing that might make them fall out is the prospect of losing power. And if there is a public cynicism that attaches to all the political parties and personalities, then I think in terms of democracy in this country, we are in a very serious situation.
I see that the Minister of Justice, Wijadasa Rajapaksa,
your friend, newfound friend.
I might beg to defer with you on that. But he says, commenting on this special cabinet meeting, I think it's supposed to be held today, he says, looks like there is nothing more important in the country, referring, of course, to the avant-garde matter. But surely, what is sort of annoying here is that there appears to be this concerted attempt to not place any blame on the former Defence Secretary. We've had many people on our different programs, and we've asked them all the same question. Do you recall Cabinet giving approval for the establishment of this Ratna Araksha? And none of them can. So then it appears to us that the former Defence Secretary was on a solo adventure.
Absolutely. That is the question that I would like answered as well. And if I may, you guys in the media never asked that question when they were in power either.
I'm so delighted that you say that, Dr. Saravanamuthu, because I, for one, have got 2 extra holes in my body because I dared question how and where the foreign funds of selling coal, the Golden Key matter. And I spent over $1,000 US on my credit card researching that aspect. only for the newspaper that I worked for to carry it but not reimburse me. That doesn't matter about that. But the point is, I also question the handing over of over $10 million worth of coal just on the whim of some government official to some company without any sort of guarantee or anything. This was their mother's, boodle, what do you call it, and they just handed it over, $10 million, without so much as a how do you do. So yeah, the media have been at work. Mr. Wickrematunge had 2 holes in his side.
I'm talking specifically about Lanka.
Yes.
Who asked the question of how on earth it was set up? What were the modalities of setting it up? As you said, was there a cabinet decision approving the setting up?
And it's a matter that the Prime Minister can resolve instantly by coming to Parliament, and he did this when he first came along, and when we raised the issue, various other issues, he named and shamed various businessmen within the sanctity of Parliament, and hiding behind parliamentary privilege. But none of those people whom he's named have been actually ended up in court. In fact, they now have cozy arrangements with some of those people who own the private media.
And also
nothing is happening.
Far as on good governance, he could have, Preston advised him to remove the governor of the central bank. Prime Minister would have listened to the President's advice. He didn't do that.
Well, these are questions that you must ask the Prime Minister. No doubt in the case...
we continue to.
In the case of the governor of the central bank, the Prime Minister may well turn around and say to you, look, how do I remove a man? On what basis? Has he violated the law? Is there hard proof that he has violated the law? Which law? Is he not innocent until proven guilty? So it's not as black and white and straightforward as it is. But there is a public hunger and thirst for accountability in respect of financial corruption. And that hunger and thirst is not being quenched. Now, it mustn't be instant gratification. It's very important that there is due process. But I think that due process can be speeded up, because if that does not happen, as I said earlier, there is cynicism that is abroad, and if it is allowed to be as pervasive as it threatens to be at this point, I think that would be very unhealthy, to say the least, for other
because there's a new awakening.
Absolutely.
There is a new awakening.
Yeah.
I wonder, Sarah, if the Prime Minister's media advisors who arrived here from England to help him in this campaign, whether they didn't talk to him about the need for a quick win intermingled with this, you need to have a proper investigation, etc. But I think the lack of a quick win is what is driving the people's cynicism
But whatever it is, I'm not privy to the discussions between the Prime Minister and his media advisors, so I really can't answer that question.
No.
But certainly, the lack of any substantive progress, and I think in the public's perception, that means indictments filed and convictions.
Yes. But we also have this strange case where Sajjan Vaskunawardena was in remand over the use or misuse, as the case may be, of 21 vehicles, which they acknowledged he's returned. But we also read a couple of weeks ago in the press that there are about 25 former ministers who have not returned their vehicles, not moved out of their official residences, but they are not being remanded. They are the subject of a new committee. So committee will look into that. So to me, it appears that the law is like that. It's out of sync. There's one law for some.
Certainly you're voicing a widespread public perception and opinion that there is an unequal treatment of politicians as opposed to the ordinary citizens, that the rule of law, which we talked about re-establishing, and the notion of equality before the law is not being institutionalized in the way that it was expected to be. And that is a serious problem.
Sara, how do you find your engagement with the present government as an organization?
I like to think that our engagement with any government is constructive and critical.
Yeah, but
And
presently,
it continues to be that.
so do they engage with you well in an open way?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to the current government on questions of constitutional reform, on questions of accountability in terms of transitional justice, and there have been fruitful discussions.
And are you happy with these now? These various commissions have been appointed. Are you happy with the members who have been appointed to these commissions?
You're talking about the independent oversight
commissions.
Yes, I mean, the Constitutional Council has appointed them, and I have no great objections to any particular person.
Time to take a break and earn a bit of money, Sarah. So do stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.
Who is earning the money?
Welcome back to Newsline with Bandula Jayasekara and Dr. Pakisoti Sarunamuthu. Sarah, very quickly, should we touch on Burma? Some odd rule there that precludes this lady from becoming president. I thought our laws here were draconian, but over there, because her children apparently are foreign nationals, will preclude her forever.
Yes, this is a very blatant attempt to make sure that she never becomes leader of the country. Now, the election results indicate that she had to, her party had to win 2/3 of the seats that were being contested, and I think they've won something like 70%. Yeah, so she is going to probably play a kind of Sonia Gandhi role until that constitution can be changed and the legal impediments, constitutional impediments to her contesting and becoming president are removed.
But Saran, on this, the US engaged Burma, Myanmar very heavily. They appointed people. I know there's a big group there, and I think Obama traveled there. I think he traveled and engaged. But have they failed in this with these rules and all this? Do you think it's a failure?
I mean, I think they have failed in terms of ensuring that all of these impediments, blatantly biased and unconstitutional, in my opinion, impediments to her gaining power, have not been removed. I suppose where they will say that they have succeeded is that they move towards elections. There has been a loosening up. There has been an improvement. It's gradual.
And also for us now, the Nepalese, we look at international thing, and they are blaming India for this blockade, even the ambulances, the oil. There is. How do you see that situation?
No, I mean, I think that is quite scandalous, quite frankly, because at the end of the day, if South Asia is to succeed in regional terms, India has to take a very different attitude, not just in terms of rhetoric, but in terms of practice on the ground. And you can't intimidate and bully and hold a country to ransom in that respect unless its political dispensation is aligned to you. This is ridiculous. South Asia will never succeed. India has a very special responsibility because unlike any other region at the end of the day, India is so much bigger in every respect, good and bad, with regard to all its South Asian neighbors, and it has borders with them, whether they be land borders or maritime borders. And so that is the crucial, pivotal relationship.
I've seen very heartbreaking accounts from the Nepalese journalists on this issue.
Yeah, this has been going on for quite some time.
With your organization, I know you called for the resignation of Mr. Marapana. Are you going to be resting on your laurels on that, or are you going to call for the resignation of some others too?
Resting on our laurels is a luxury that we at the Center for Policy Alternatives feel we cannot afford. So no.
So will you be calling for... Have you finished with the avant-garde matter?
No, I don't think we have finished with it. As long as it is in the public realm, as long as there are issues there that are not settled, which affect governance in the country, we will keep focus on it.
Did you all take a stand on the matter of the central bank bond issue?
On the central bank bond issue we did, but we did not issue a statement. I can't remember actually issuing a statement at that time on the issue. But certainly, I mean, I think as far as the central bank, for example, is concerned, and as far as the governorship of the central bank, we would support the idea that the governor of the central bank ought to be appointed by the Constitutional Council, nominated by the Constitutional Council as well.
Sir, my colleague, my journalist colleague, I mean, he is also editor of a newspaper. He's been, I would say, insulted and accused by the Minister of Justice. Would you make a statement on that? Because I don't know whether you saw the clip.
No, unfortunately I didn't. But what is, he has accused you of being, called you?
What, I must get the words right now. Mentally retarded.
In Sinhala, he said Manda Buddhika, you know. So he's been, so I don't think, I mean, he has a right to, ask a question.
I don't know if I might offer some unsolicited advice. I don't think the Minister of Justice is an expert on mental illness or imbecility or whatever. And so I think you should let the public judge this one.
Yes, we might do that actually. But we're not going to let him get away with it scot-free. You know, he will have to, he'll have to deal with it.
Well, you openly challenged him yesterday.
Indeed, that's true. But you know, it's like Alice in Wonderland, isn't it? It's getting curiouser and curious. I don't hear of. We've heard of one presidential secretary, Lalit Weeratunga, but there was another one. We haven't heard of him for a while now. So either he's got a good PR team and an absolutely super relationship with all the media, or something is happening.
You're talking, I think you're referring to the additional secretary as well as chief of staff, Gamini Senrath.
Yes, he's chief of staff.
Yeah, he's the one whom is
At the beginning, there was a lot of news on him, and then we see nothing. It's the same. So
well, I mean, I don't know what the status of investigations may well be, whether they have been dropped or whether they are still being pursued. So I really can't answer that question.
No.
I can only answer the general point that if there is a pervasive feeling that certain individuals are not being investigated, that there's political interference and support to ensure that they enjoy impunity or immunity from investigation and prosecution, the government will pay very dearly for it politically.
Have you got any information about Mrs. Kumaratunga? What is she up to? Do you know?
That question really needs to be directed to her.
The difficulty is trying to get hold of her.
Well, I mean, former President Kumaratunga is the head of the Office of National
Reconciliation or
Unity and Reconciliation.
Perhaps an email to them might elicit.
Yeah, but you might be, again, go on a press conference, they might say you are sending emails.
Yes, that's
these
true.
politicians.
She too might.
But she was in the news for us. I think this week she said about her pension. I saw in a news
yes,
she said that
25,000 has now been increased.
Mine didn't increase the pension, but my it's an increase the pension. So she.
So how do you think they manage on this awful pension, such a low amount of money?
Honestly, Faiz, how on earth would I know?
You don't get that pension, do you?
I don't get that pension. I probably have to manage on much less.
Right. But what do you think? What do you think is the average?
So I'm sure it's difficult. Maybe we should start a public fund, collect money and give it to them for their living. I'm sure, Faraz, you can do that. You said that you spent $1,000 on.
Well, this is
on research. On research, I did. Yeah.
But this could be compassionate grounds.
What, the $1,000?
Which is an equally noble cause to spend $1,000 on.
Right, but I mean, what do you think, Sarah? Do you think this government will last 2 years?
Yes.
They finished one nearly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the government that was elected in August.
Oh, okay, right.
It hasn't lasted 1 year already.
Right, okay.
You're making me think that Vijayadasa may have a point.
Well, I don't know, right? So you think that they'll last two years?
I think so.
But people are complaining that it's a shame to sit with this one, that one, so both sides are complaining.
No, yes, I think that's the other point as well. I mean, we also need to appreciate one other thing, is that it is a coalition government.
Yeah.
it is a coalition government, and they're invariably going to be these kinds of mutterings and one side trying to take advantage over another, because they're politicians and it's about power at the end of the day. So let's see. I mean, the local government elections are scheduled for March next year. Yeah. I don't know whether
that's the Pradesh Sabhas,
the Pradesh Sabhas, urban councils, municipal councils. Let's see how that pans out. If the Sri Lanka Freedom Party goes its own way, and the United National Party goes its own way.
That's what the President said. He's going to lead the party, and
indicate. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of campaign, what kind of contest we're really going to have.
And how is national reconciliation doing?
Well, national reconciliation requires now this whole process of transitional justice that has been talked about in Geneva as well as in Sri Lanka to commence. In addition to that, I think there are a number of the sort of confidence-building measures that can happen. Now, I understand that there is going to be a release of 30-odd of the prisoners and a further release thereafter. So a process has now been initiated, but I think the real acid test is going to be on the accountability mechanisms, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs did promise in Geneva that there will be a whole series of public consultations with regard to it, and that is yet to happen.
Good. I've got one final question for you, Sarah. Will you be issuing a statement on avant-garde?
Well, we did issue a statement on the debate in Parliament.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. And you've also issued a statement on Mr. Marapene's...
That statement included the call for Mr. Marapene's resignation.
Right. Excellent. So the state of affairs is good, is hopeful, Vandana?
Looks like. Looks like. I mean, let the public decide. Like we say, we report, you decide. So people are watching. Like Sarah said, people are very attentive now. Things have changed. The young youth groups are very focused.
Absolutely.
If you were to give the President a word of advice, what would you say to him? What is, in your view, what is the most pressing matter for the moment, at the moment?
I think the most pressing matter for the moment is that the President, as the Chief Executive of the country, from the perspective of the government, needs to communicate with the public at large in terms of what is happening, why there might be delays, what is being planned, etc. That national dialogue conversation from the Chief Executive with the people of the country needs to happen, because people are now much more aware of their role, their responsibilities as stakeholders in governance.
Excellent.
For us also, before you end, I think you should say who we'll have 2 learned monks joining us.
Yes, tomorrow. Have you got the name?
Yeah, we have 2 learned monks who will join us to discuss on Sobita Thero, that is Reverend Banagalu Patissa, as well as Dr. Madagoda Abetis. They will be joining us to discuss on the late Sobita Thero.
Do stay tuned to us tomorrow, but for today, Dr. Saramanamuthu, thank you very much for turning up here on time. Excellent. Thank you very much. And Bandara, thank you for your support here. Leave you with this little thought for the day. When the heart speaks, the mind finds it indecent to object. On that note, I shall wish you a very good morning and have a great day.
Right?